like to serve, and why. And on February 12th, I'll present an update to the Admin Council on where we are. I only chose February 12th because those are the dates that we already have scheduled meetings. Between February 15th and February 25th, we will be able to take the data that we have found, and that same group that put the survey together will be culling that data so that it's in a form that's really easily digestible so that we can hand it out to anybody who served on a focus, who is going to serve on a focus group, or anyone who's interested in having that data. What does it look like? Where do we think we are? So the entire community can have access to the survey data results. I won't do all the blues because they say the same thing.
May I ask one question?
Of course.
You talked that January 8th timeframe, the big buckets, right? Which I'm assuming are the focus group areas?
Well, they may or they may not be, but what we talked about as an admin team is what were our big buckets.
Okay.
So one of the things that, I'll give you an example, one of the things that was, I think, sort of on the tip of everyone's tongue was increased enrollment in the district. And not just to say, oh my gosh, we have increased enrollment, but to say, you know, what is our funding going to look like so that we can be sure that the programs that we think are valuable educationally for kids stay in place, right? Or what's going to need to happen if we need to add classrooms to the high school, or if we are accepted into the pipeline with an SOI for Elmwood and we want to renovate that building and do in addition to that building. And what's it going to look like if you decide to change the configuration of, you know, 2 elementary schools in the district? Or what's it going to look like when we are asking the community for money? How is the communication and how is the messaging going to go out? Right. So even though that might be something that would happen over the next, you know, 3 to 5 years, one of the things that we learned when we talk about MSBA is that, you know, you've got to think about 5 to 7 years to have a core project like Elmwood. Where are we going to be if we don't get invited into that pipeline this year? What kinds of things do we have in place to ensure that? And I think that that is really important work. But even though the administrative team thought that was important work, the community may not. Who knows?
Right. And I guess that's what I was trying to ask, that, you know, you have the big buckets up there, and as you're walking through, you were talking about the survey and survey results. So will those two be connected and then the final big buckets?
All the data we have in front of us will start to inform those buckets. And it will be interesting when I show you what another district's strategic plan looks like, because you'll see that it's very different from the strategic plan that we have in place currently. If you look at our current strategic plan document, it probably has 35 to 40 pages in it. And it gets to that place where you really have to kind of rifle through it to find what you're looking for, and over time I'm not sure that what that plan says means exactly what we think it means anymore. So you'll sort of see what that looks like. But to go back to your question, yes, all the information we have in front of us should be informing the work.
Thank you.
So yes, on February 28th, when we present, or when I present to the school committee on the progress of our strategic planning work, you'll get to see all of that information. We'll talk about some of the makeup of the focus groups. Hopefully on those focus groups we'll have a school committee member, 2 administrators, 3 parents, maybe someone from the town side, 3 teachers, an assistant superintendent, and superintendent. And that's just sort of a guesstimate right now of who would be on those. But if there are 3 or 4 of them and we're looking at 12 members, we're talking about, you know, somewhere between, like, I don't know, 35 and 50 people that would come together at least for that part of the process, right? The focus group work, again, will be facilitated by Cindy Boney, who is our consultant. I would also say that any parent who might not have been selected to actually be on a focus group can certainly attend all of the focus group meetings. And then after this, it's really just, you know, the work of updating as we go. And sometime after we finish with all of the focus work throughout March, in April we'll begin to create a rough draft of what that plan will look like. And we will continue to bring it back and to publicize it so that people have an opportunity to continue to look at that. And I would just say that, you know, as people make comments on it, I think that a lot of the things that people, you know, will want to happen will need to be things that are tenable within, the construct of public education. They'll need to be things that, data is supporting. But I think that this is an opportunity for us to really have a vision of what Hopkinton is and what Hopkinton can be. Like, I don't think that we are, any of the neighboring communities, but we should have sort of our own brand. And I know that when I did my entry findings report, there were people who said, we have a good brand here, and how do we continue to reshape that, massage it, take it into the next decade, and see who we are. So,
Yeah,
and hopefully by June 30th, you will have, hopefully. But, I mean, I would prefer not to rush it and take our time and have a really good product than to use June 30th as a be-all, end-all deadline.
Yeah, I think this is a great framework that you have put together here. One question on my mind is the old strategic plan. One thing that stands out in my mind from previous conversations when Dr. McLeod had presented how things have improved in the 5 years that the strategic plan has been in place was goal setting for kids, not just the final results, right? So there were some things which were still there. So how will we connect things which are still out there with what we are planning ahead? So a lot of work was done. We have achieved a lot in the 5 years. So just want to hear your thoughts
Well, I
on
would
that.
simply say that if there are things that are year 6 things that we would want to carry into the future, we will certainly make that happen.
Is it okay to jump in?
Yeah.
So I will say that I initially, as I did come to you between last meeting and this week, I was kind of stuck in the old model of how it's done, and after looking through this with you on the side, and then also in here, I think this is a much better way of doing it in terms of getting more voices from the community, that it feels like this is empowering more people to be part of the process rather than just a smaller steering committee. So I like how it's laid out in a clear way for us to see the steps going forward and where the different points are, where it will come back in here.
Thank you. Yes, and I like that sort of the boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Admin and teachers will also have buy-in here as well.
I think that's great, and I also was thinking back to when we were at the MASC conference, when they were talking about how the strategic plans of today are different than they were when our old strategic plan was created, and how much more useful they are when they're that smaller document that people are familiar with what it is and what it means, and it's a shared understanding of it.
Yeah, I like it too for that reason. I feel like I really like how it starts with the people who are in the trenches, basically, the admin, and who are getting information from the teachers. I think those are the sort of the idea people. They know what's happening now, honestly, legitimately in the classroom, not what's supposed to be or theoretically or any of those sort of awesome rosy picture, here's what should happen. They know. And so I like that it's starting with them and then kind of building from there. And, I think the community input is huge and is valuable. But I like that it's starting with the teachers and the admin, because we, like as parents, we all view the schools through the lens of our own children. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's good to kind of get a bigger picture first. And they see all the kids. So all 3,000 kids are being accounted for by the teachers and the admin, not just our own personal experience. So I kind of like that too, because you definitely bring like that bias that you were talking about. It's tilted based on the experience of your own child, mm-hmm. which is not unimportant, but there are 3,000 children. So you got to kind of balance so I like this a lot. I think this is going to be good. And once those big buckets are figured out, I think that's going to be a real turning point, because once the focus groups start, we'll get some good information.
I have just one comment. You talked about the kids and the students and the large student body. I don't know in your listening tour if you had student voices in there, because their experience matters equally. So how would that get included here in the process?
Only high school students.
Okay.
And I was it was an interesting concept, because I thought, okay, so these are kids who have experienced the Hopkinton Public Schools, some of them through 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, but, a good substantial portion of the Hopkinton Public Schools. And what I found interesting was they seem to not have a whole lot of recollection of grade 2 and grade 3. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were living in that, oh my goodness, this is so much better than the middle school world if you were a ninth grader. And so really the vision for them was a lot of here and now.
Right, right, because I remember Miss Parsons sharing the story of the sixth grader who was outspoken. And I've certainly seen kids in Hopkins being outspoken, and not to speak of our own kids, you know. So I guess I'm wondering how those voices could also come in and their thoughts on what they would like the school to be.
So perhaps as we do, you know, sort of email blasts, we'll make sure that we are hitting student emails as well.
Okay, thank you.
I'm continually amazed by your organizational skills, Dr. Kavanaugh.
Well, I have to thank my friend over here. We put this together.
It does.
Nancy, when we have the school committee meetings that we receive updates, will those be public forums? Can we have discussion with the community if they want to come forward and have dialogue? So it's my only concern, that just making sure that there's an opportunity for beyond the 12 or however many parents are on the focus groups, that if the community wants to engage in dialogue with, can we arrange that somehow? I don't know how we have to publicize our
What kind of
meetings. It has to
meeting
be
it
a
is.
public forum versus a standard meeting.
Right, sure, that, where there's, as opposed to just a public comment, you're looking for something where we're able to, like we would at a public hearing, to do the give and take.
Exactly.
Either in this meeting or separate, is that?
Exactly. I think it would be
understanding?
it's frustrating if they have something they really want to ask about and we really can't engage. So I want to make sure we have an opportunity to engage if there's substantial feedback or questions or,
I think
I
that's
think
great.
that's, I think
Yeah.
that's a good,
yeah, okay.
All right. So I will just zip through the last bit of this. All right, so what does a modern-day strategic plan look like? I actually had a couple of them, but in the laptop switch. I'm only going to show you Weston because that's the only one that I have a link to. All the others that are posted are Microsoft Word documents. Maybe I can make that a
We
little
get
bit
the idea
bigger for
about
you.
page 1 of 3 up there, as opposed to 1 of 34.
Yes.
That's the big picture idea we're going for, right?
You will notice that it does say page 1 of 3. So they have their mission, vision, core values, and theory of action. And what they've done is they have created for themselves only 3 buckets. Their buckets are to strengthen educational practices in order to promote intellectual stretch, engaged learning, equitable access, and excellence for every student every day. Their second one is to foster students' well-being in order to develop their emotional resiliency and intellectual curiosity. And their third is to champion a school community committed to cultural competency, trust, and mutual respect in order to prepare students to be citizens of the world. So there's their 3 buckets. And then you get their strategic initiatives. Those are the things that they are going to work on. So if we look at something like 1.1 that says expand student-centered, experiential, authentic learning opportunities for students that require real-world application, intellectual curiosity, collaboration, perseverance, and critical thinking, that would find its way into each one of the school improvement plans and into educator goals. So what does that look like when it's manifest, say, in their middle school? And this is just a slide here that measures the outcomes. How are you going to know if it works? Those are their 3 pages.
Could you just go back to their mission, like the
Oh,
first,
sure.
for
Yes,
just
I'm
a
sorry.
second?
I didn't mean to zip through. Oh, I got
So
it
in
here.
theory, I know you said that there are mission and vision. We might, like the writing of an essay, we might come back to that. In theory, a mission doesn't fluctuate all that much for an organization over time. I mean, if we get it right, it should be pretty enduring, I would think.
I agree.
The vision can sort of evolve, but the mission often stays pretty constant. In our case, we're kind of open to still, we're still open to maybe tweaking our mission. Is that in our case?
Oh, yes, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
currently, I think that we still have Learn, Create, Achieve together. Yeah.
And the vision, how would you define that? Have you talked about that with a consultant? Like, what is that supposed to be?
No, so we have not talked about this with the consultant, we haven't talked about it with the admin team. I think that at some point, we can kind of go back to that when we have, and I know people will say, if you don't have a mission in your mind, but I don't think that at this point, 18 administrators in a room should have a singular mission in their mind. Like, a mission, I think, should come from what does this community and what do the educational leaders hope for, in the coming 3 to 5 years.
I'm excited for this. I'm personally hoping that we articulate through the vision when we're done, something that enables parents to know what they're getting from Hopkinton Public Schools, which is maybe different from Franklin or Framingham or what. We're our own community with our own focus, our own needs, our own vision, and I'm hoping that we get clear enough in the first 2 buckets that people understand Hopkinton and sort of the contract that we're sort of making with our parents and what we're going to deliver. So
Yeah,
good.
I'm excited
It's
for this
exciting.
work too. It should be really fun.
It's
Hard work,
I'm
but
glad
it's
you
going
both
to
said
be
that.
really fun work.
Because I find it exciting as well, and I did not want to be the only one that found this to be enthusiasm.
And that's a 3-year plan, I think, right, from far away, does that say
Yes.
18 to 21? So, 3 pages, 3 years, 3 buckets. I'm sensing a theme here, but
Yes.
it's succinct. I like that, because you can read it. A parent can read it. I'm not saying parents won't read the 35-page document, but,
Oh, I'm
the
sure they've all read
motivation
it.
starts at, right, 3 pages you can pick up and do.
Yes, and I think another thing is when you have something that's so succinct, you know what you want to be good at.
Yeah.
You don't think I'll just be good at everything.
Right, exactly.
And, while you're going through the motions, I would also hope that the measurement of these achievements, as you have laid out the plan, what are those measures? How would you go about it? Whether it's a survey, whether it's performance results, what are those things? Maybe those are some things to think about too.
Yes, so they do have their outcomes up there. Some people call them process and product benchmarks. There's lots of different names that people apply to them, but I do think that we have to measure the degree to which we are meeting, what we put forth.
Is the admin team
Beyond
excited?
the fun work.
Mr. Keller,
Wait, I just walked in, hold on.
is the admin team excited for strategic planning?
Yes, I believe. I'm not sure if they use it for fun, but
All right, so for tonight, the one thing I'm looking for is one of you to serve on a committee to develop a survey with us.
I would love to do that unless there's somebody else that is dying to
Go
be a
for it.
survey.
All right,
You
Nancy.
Go
find
for it,
yourself in a bind,
Nancy.
I'm happy to help, but you go for it, yeah.
Did you want to?
No, I don't, you jumped in, you go.
Okay, I do not want to step on any toes.
No, you're not, not at all.
Like, go for it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
All right, is that
Hired.
You're hired. You're in. All right, I'll have my people call your people.
my people are all under the age of 10, so.
I'll call you directly then. All right, thank you all.
Okay, so is that?
We're on to you.
Okay, so I will start out by saying that I have approved the warrants 19-065, 19-066, and 19-068, and all warrants have been included in your packet. And then the next thing I had here was I wanted to do a little update on the school committee office hours, but since we were not all there at the same time, it would you and Jen want to talk a little bit about, because I know you had the concerns that were raised before Amanda and I were there, and then we could talk about the.
Sure. So, it was brought to our attention that, the company that's coming in, or that's hoping to come in on South Street, Lycan, presented in front of the Board of Selectmen last Tuesday, and one of the things that was mentioned during the presentation was an opportunity for, internships. I mean, with the understanding that the company is trying to sell themselves and say, yes, you want us in town. But it was presented as a possibility, to, they said it, so maybe we should hook up with them and find out what they have to offer, and whether or not it's, strictly internships, maybe there's some sort of partnership or funding opportunity for STEM or some related field. So, so we thought that was interesting, but also the other piece that I'm not going to be good at explaining this because both Mina and I were both like, okay. So, so the idea of the company seeking out something called a TIF, and if I mess this up, please feel free to jump in and tell me I'm messing it up. I'm okay with it. I guess our town manager will be working on the negotiations to give the company a tax break in order to come in and renovate the building, and as they bring in more people, make improvements on the building to allow for more space. So again, don't quote me on all these details, but the big picture is, how does the tax break offered to the company ultimately affect the schools, given that the company, even if they bring in 100 new employees and only half of those employees have 2 children, that's still 100 more children that we would need to absorb into the Hopkinton Public Schools as a result of this new company coming in. So, I mean, all good things, but still, with space already being a concern and budget constraints already being a concern, if there are tax implications that may affect how the Hopkinton Public Schools are benefiting from this company, I think that we need to either, I didn't get the feeling that there was as much as I'm hedging right now, I feel like there was a lot of hedging going on. We don't really know what's happening, but maybe we should know what's happening. And so that's sort of the big message out of there. We should maybe touch base with Norman and find out if these negotiations have started, if they have started, what's going on, and how can we make sure that our interests are protected in this process. So, for whatever that's worth, that was sort of the big thing that came out of that conversation. The internships would be great if the company does come, but making sure that we can fund the additional students that may come as a result of this company coming into town is kind of a big deal at this point. So, great to have industry come into the town, but making sure that we cover our interests as well. Did I mess that up?
No, you did
No.
very well.
Thanks. What do you have to add?
No, I think that is it. I really appreciate, the resident coming in and sharing these thoughts, and in a very thoughtful manner.
Yes.
And just bringing it to our attention that, is the school committee talking about this, that the impact to the school?
And Mina and I said,
Not
No.
yet, not yet,
so,
not yet.
So,
So very thankful for that.
Yep.
And definitely on the internship front, we had a long conversation and a little bit on the stem of what new possibilities are. And, internships beyond just this company that's coming up in town otherwise. So it was a good conversation.
it was great.
That's great. So
Nice
if,
to have someone come to office hours.
we had a
Felt like it was
couple
a win.
more. We had 2 more that came when Amanda and I were there, and I really, I so appreciate people coming out, that taking time out of their day with enthusiasm to know what's going on with us. And
It's great.
even if we didn't have 100 people there, 3 I think is a good
Right.
number to make ourselves available for. We had one who had questions that were related, more general, and looking just to kind of say, hey, what are we doing and how does it work? So we had a good conversation with that parent. And then another parent who had more specific questions regarding special education and out-of-district placements, and also wanted to pass along. We did have one person who was very complimentary about appreciating how our superintendent listens to parents and solicits feedback, and how approachable you have been. So I did want to pass that along to you.
Very nice, thank you.
Do you want to add some of what?
No, I think you covered it, yeah.
Okay. All right, so that, and we can look, hopefully to put a date on, I would say after February break, perhaps in February. So. Then the final thing I have in my report, and I apologize because I got it to you all late. I don't know if you all had seen the email I sent out regarding so every board and committee in town, is the chair is asked to send a report to the town, and I wanted to see if you guys I don't have to hand it in tomorrow or anything like that, but I wanted just to show you kind of where my thoughts are in a rough draft, and then also to see if there are things that I am missing. that you guys think I should add in, or things that you think I have added in that I should take out and never speak of publicly.
I actually appreciate the fact that you're sharing this with us and, giving us an opportunity to provide feedback. I think it is very well drafted. I'm going to relook at it to see if there is anything else that comes to my mind too.
One thing I had thought would be nice to add a little bit more to are some of the things that I have not been a part of, some of the things going on with the website, the school committee website, and the overall website, and some of the policy things and the conversations that we have taken our own little, they're not silos because we're connecting them all together, but I want to make sure that what's out there is inclusive of some of the work that I have not been as deeply a part of. So, does anybody have anything specific they want to pull out now, or you want to circle back to it?
I need to read it with care, and I'll send you a note.
I will look forward to that.
Good.
All right. Then with that, I'm gonna flip screens here for a minute. That brings us into liaison reports. So do people have any liaison reports? I know it feels like we just met, but I don't think we did liaison reports last week.
I have one, if I may.
Go.
This is with the Marathon Fund Committee. I actually really enjoy being on that committee because there are, people coming to ask for funds for interesting things, and it's getting approved. So two things got approved this past week. One was a $1,500 grant for the fishing derby to Officer Phil, and it's always a pleasure to watch him. And the other one is the post-prom. I think it is over $4,500 that has been granted by the Marathon Fund Committee. Two parents came, shared, what's going to happen, and swore us to confidentiality because no one's supposed to know about it. So it was really nice. The other thing that's happening there's a review of the charge of the fund committee that's going on. I want to bring it back to the school committee perhaps in the next meeting or as it gets a little finalized as to the membership specifically wanting your feedback. So more to come on that.
It's nice to be on the other side of funding issues, since so much of what we're doing as a school committee is looking for funds, to be able to be on the passing out end. It's going to feel good.
It is. And it's a wonderful group of people.
Anybody?
We have meetings coming up, actually, so next time, we'll be crazy with reports.
Hours of reports.
Yep.
Do you want to touch on CPAC a little bit, since I did miss the very beginning of that?
Yes, and also the Youth Commission all the members have been working really hard to put together a wonderful program for us for Monday, for Martin Luther King Day, which begins in the morning, and the first thing they want from you is your blood. It's the blood drive.
Literally.
But there are lots of fabulous activities, so I hope a lot of people in the community will show up like they did last year. Why don't you do CPAC? You're the
So
liaison.
I am the liaison, but I did miss the very beginning, and I don't want to,
I don't even remember what we did, Nancy.
well, how about I bring it back to the next meeting? Because
Yeah,
it will be
do.
before CPAC, and we can discuss the
It
parts
was
that I
all
missed.
congenial.
It was congenial.
It was
It was a
congenial and
lovely, and
useful,
yeah.
and everyone left with a smile on their faces. Is that too much?
No, I think we were smiling as we walked out.
Good.
There were quite a few different administrators there that were able to give some information on different, some discussion of ESY.
And there were good plans afoot for ESY, and thinking along with parents about ways to improve it
Excuse me.
and to incorporate parents in the activities. So the Director of Special Ed has sent out a talent survey to families in case any family members have talents they would like to bring to the extended school year program in the summer to work with the kids. Mina, Commissioner Barat,
Yes, that,
just a thought.
just,
I would love to do something. Maybe I'll touch base with you. Thank you.
Yes, the other thing that I will say about the CPAC meeting was that Dr. Zaleski sent out the information about parent safety care. So anyone can do that. You do not have to be a parent of a special education child. Everybody can sign up for safety care. The only issue with signing up for safety care is they are taking people in increments of 30. So my guess is that there will be a wait list pretty quickly.
I'm sorry, what is safety care?
Yes.
What is it?
Oh, sorry. So how do you sort of look at your child and recognize the triggers that, will cause your child to either tantrum or go into dysregulation? And how do you get your whole family to sort of practice, things that are proactive as opposed to reactive? Yeah. And there are 2 evenings, I don't remember when they are, but to go to the second session, you must attend the first session because they're successive.
Yeah, and it's coming up soon, February 5th and February 12th. And I think an example that was given was really helpful to me, that if you struggle a lot, say with a child who has difficulty transitioning from the Xbox to doing homework, you might pick up on some of the tips here. So a few things they'll focus on in the first meeting are incident prevention, caregiver behavior, antecedents and challenging behaviors, and de-escalation. So I think sounds to me like a wonderful learning opportunity for how to parent generally.
Yeah,
And for all parents, it's
Yeah.
not just limited to special education families.
That's right.
Meg, my wheels are churning in my head. I'm wondering if young Mr. Bader and I could do a DOSA class during ESY.
Oh, you're back on that other subject. Yes.
I missed what
Absolutely.
So,
Cooking.
cooking. I don't know, that's a possibility for ESY.
We've lost Mina for the rest of the meeting. She's going to do that.
Yes, I'm thinking about
I'm
it.
waiting for your sign up to come out, Mina.
Yep.
Do it.
I just have a quick update on the website committee. We had our first round of vendor presentations. We have, this past week, and Mr. Ghosh set up our second round for next week. And I think we will have seen, by the end of next week, I think 6 vendors in total. An hour plus each, kind of back to back. It's a lot to take on, but the subcommittee will then be meeting after those days to review what we've seen. We have a very detailed checklist of requirements and so forth that we're all kind of going through as we hear the presentations, and we're hoping to make a selection by early February.
That's so exciting.
Yeah,
That's a great
it was
job.
very exciting. Yeah,
Great
that's-
job.
It'll be a lot of work to get from, here to the end goal. A lot of data cleanup. A lot of the vendors have emphasized cleaning the content, which is going to be painful for everybody involved, I think. A lot of the teachers and administrators, too, are going to feel that, unfortunately, but they encourage not bringing your junk drawer. If you move houses, don't bring your junk drawer as a junk drawer. Clean it out. So there's going to be a lot of work, but it will be very exciting. I think the outcome will be great. Good resource.
That's well done. And I just have a quick one on the bridge, which, as you know, we did commission the bridge as a subcommittee back several meetings ago now, and we actually have not put the whole group together, but when we come back in the next one, we will have met and have had the whole group together. We also have a student group who has reached out to me, who is interested in fundraising to benefit the bridge to help offset some of the needs that are identified through the schools. So
Great.
Fantastic.
that's where we are with that. And that brings us, are there any other? Okay. Into new business A, which is the school committee vote on the school budget. So,
Should we get him?
oh, yeah, let's actually take Mr. Keller. Do we
Oh,
want to
yes,
take
let's
Mr.
take
Keller out of
Mr.
order?
Keller, yes.
That's a good idea, thank you.
Absolutely.
Would you like to come up and we'll take your middle school handbook out of order here? Or are you here for the intent to travel, or are we doing, or both?
Oh, he's here for everything.
He's here. Oh, yes,
name's
I
on
did.
He
there
is
a lot.
one-stop shopping.
All right, well, we will let you jump in with whichever of your items you would like to jump in with first.
Thank you, I appreciate you accommodating. So, I think, if it's okay, I'll start with the intent to travel. So I have two intents to travel, for next school year, obviously. The first is Nature's Classroom, which is our grade 6 field trip. Next year, if approved, would mark our 27th year attending Nature's Classroom. We are looking to do this trip 4 days, 3 nights, October 22nd through, that's Tuesday, October 22nd, through Friday, October 25th. The approximate cost is $360, and that includes round trip busing to Charlton, Mass, where we now go for Nature's Classroom. It includes a medical professional on site there at the Charlton site. It includes rooming and meals for all students. Stop there, and then wait for New York City.
Do we have to do
Yes,
this
so we do.
separately? Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so,
All right.
any questions?
I love Nature's Classroom.
Yeah.
It's all
great.
good. It's a great way to start middle school.
It really is. So many students, I know, later on look back on that with fond memories, so, and it seems like it really brings the grade together. So then I would seek a motion to approve the intent to travel for the grade 6 October 2019 Nature's Classroom.
So moved.
Motion by Meg and a second
Second.
by Jen. All those in favor? Aye. And that is all set, so we can move into the next one.
Thank you. So the second intent to travel is for our grade 8 full-day field trip to New York City. Next year, if approved, would mark our 4th year going to New York City. We changed from Washington DC in our first year going to New York City was the 16-17 school year. This trip would be from Wednesday, June 10th, where we leave Hopkinton Middle School and return on the evening of Friday, June 12th. The cost for that trip is $775. Again, that's an approximate amount. And it's a little bit higher than this year because of the number of students. So right now, the current grade 7 is 236 total students. And the company we work with, Jump Street, has agreed not to raise their prices for the next 2 years. However, their pricing is based on number of total students. And so that gets us up at the higher end of pricing for that. So right now it's approximately $775, but they certainly said that they would be willing to work with us to see if we could make some changes, but that's where it is at this particular moment. So for New York City, we attend Ellis Island, which we've been doing. Actually, we're going to shift away from Ellis Island this year because we felt like there's not a lot there for students. It's a great place to be. However, we have found it to not be very interactive, and the students tend to just be wandering around looking at the names. However, we just learned that a new memorial is opening, I believe, next month there, and so we're hearing some good things about that. A new museum, I should say. So we have actually already been booked to go to that for this school year, so we're excited. So we do that. We do an evening dinner dance cruise. We go to the 9/11 Memorial Museum, and there's a variety of activities. We've taken a play. This year we're actually going to see To Kill a Mockingbird on Broadway, which just opened in December. And so it's been a very positive experience, encompassing many of our curricular areas at the middle school.
What grade did they read To Kill a Mockingbird?
In eighth grade.
It is, yeah, it is.
They're actually
That's
just
what I
getting
thought.
ready to start in a little bit.
That's great.
Great.
It's a nice tie-in. What is, do you know roughly, as a percentage of either this year or last year's grade 8 that attended?
I do.
Is it-
I hadn't finalized my numbers. That's what I was working on when you called me up.
Oh, sorry,
But,
sorry to interrupt.
at present, for this year, I'm flipping this. So 88% of our students are going this year. Last year, we had 92% that attended the field trip. So it's been between, for the 4 years we've gone, our first year, there was a few more that did not attend. I think there was still, people were still kind of waiting to see what this was going to be all about. So I think it was around 14% that first year that did not attend.
And what do they do if they do not, I assume they're still in school?
Yeah, I mean, so some parents opt not to send their children. But the students who do come to school, the teachers that are here plan activities that are similar to what we're doing when we're in New York City. So obviously we're not going to Broadway, but they're doing different activities that kind of bring the curriculum to life, and so
Nice.
we have some teachers that work on a variety of things.
Any other questions on that or comments? Okay, then I will, to make sure I get this in the accurate wording here, just looking for a motion to approve the intent to travel for grade 8 to New York City in June of 2020.
So moved.
Motion by Meg, second
Second.
by Jen. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, and you are all set with that one as well?
Thank you. So the next item are changes to the handbook, which I believe are, not I believe, but are both at the middle school and high school. So I'm hoping maybe Dr. Kavanaugh, if you could give me a little lead in with what precipitated these changes.
I can.
Okay.
So there's sort of two different events that have precipitated the changes. The first is, and you may remember that public schools used to go through what was called a coordinated program review, and they would come in to take a look at things like civil rights and special education and education and sort of all of those pieces. They now have renamed that to tiered focus monitoring. So that's what is currently going on in the Hopkinton Public Schools. It was very interesting because when they made the change from coordinated program review, CPR, to TFM, we had just gone through our coordinated program review. And, typically that happens to, I think, once every 10 years. But we are back on the docket, and so that is why we have changed some of the language. The language is just required changes. So when, Debbie tells us that we have to make these changes, we make the changes.
So there are changes in the middle school handbook to non-discrimination, civil rights, and bullying prevention and intervention on pages 5, 26, 32, 33, 36, and 45. And those I know were highlighted in the packets. And then there was also a change to participation in the Pledge of Allegiance, and that's noted on page 10 in our handbook.
Yes, and I can talk a little bit about the change to the Pledge of Allegiance. We were contacted by a family who said that there's a particular obedience about the Pledge of Allegiance in our public schools because every morning we ask students and teachers to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. So we looked at Mass General Law, and Mass General Law did in fact say that we are required to do the pledge every single morning in our public schools. They deemed that the words under God are not religious but rather political. And they tell you that the words under God were added to the Pledge of Allegiance in the 1950s. So when we started to talk about this, we thought we really wanted to allow kids to have a sense of what their rights are every morning when we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. So if students do not want to participate, they can, remain sitting and just watch everyone else do it. If they choose to stand up and recite the pledge and eliminate the words under God, they may. They can put in substitute words for under God. So we wanted to just make sure that families and students were aware of what their rights are. In the elementary handbook where we made the same change, we noted that if you if your student was going to make a change in that practice, you may want to just call the teacher so that the teacher was aware that that was a decision you had made as a family. But we've also trained the teachers in each one of the buildings too, so that they know that this change is coming and that it has in fact been added to the handbooks. Questions?
I actually wonder if we should change our language at the beginning of the meeting to we invite anyone who would like to join us to stand. I mean, the language that we use is a little bit more like let's all stand
Yeah.
versus,
Yeah.
just wondering.
Nope, that's fine.
Nancy, I'm wondering if there was any emails from any parents, any comments?
I did not receive any emails on any of the things.
I just wanted to commend you on your handbook. Actually, I read it, and it was both readable and written with the parent and community in mind in terms of how they digest it. So I found it to be, up to date, easy to read, and I know that takes a ton of work. So I don't know if it's you or Mrs. Balboa or your staff, but I think you must be doing regular work at maintaining this. And the links were nice. I thought it was actually a very nice handbook.
Thank you. So when I first became principal, I spent a lot of time on it. That was one of my first projects. But since then, we've updated every year. Lisa Cardy, out of the tech office a couple of years ago, spent a lot of time with, I think, all of the district handbooks. She did a lot of work with Rita Balboa, and then every year, one of the assistant principals spends a lot of time on it. So I like to think that people read it, and my hope is that people read it. So thank
It
you.
is readable.
Yeah.
I will say that. It is readable. It's unlike, sometimes like policy documents or whatever
Yeah.
get a little dry. It is readable and seems to be written nicely. So,
Thank you.
sidebar.
That's- All right, well, if there are no further comments or questions, then I would seek a motion to approve the changes to the middle school handbook for 2018-2019 as outlined in our materials.
So moved.
Motion by Meg, and a second.
I'll second.
Second by Jen. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. It is so passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you.
All right. With that, then we can circle back to the school committee vote on the school budget so that I don't get too far missing things. This is an important one. Before we take a vote on this, I just wanted to open it up if people had discussion, comments. I know, Meg, I know that we had discussed that you had seen it, although we did miss you very much.
I'm sure you did.
I have not received a whole lot of feedback at all about our budget, which is both, I think, a good sign, also a little bit daunting when you're kind of out there and hoping that people have been following along, and silence means that they are in favor of what we have done. I have received some positive feedback from community members at the hard choices that were made at trying to move a budget that was close to 10% increase in the beginning down to the 6.67%. So a lot of appreciation for that work that went on. But want to open up just for people that have any comments before we dive into a vote.
Well, I thought it might be worth reminding people that I know that they're a little bit gobsmacked sometimes when they look at the numbers for special education. And I think it's worth reiterating that most of that funding goes to out-of-district placements and transportation, which is outrageously expensive. So, you know, these are costs that are beyond our control. We have to provide these students with these services. So if there's a kind of sticker shock about it, we're all aware of that sticker shock, but the money is going in the direction it has to.
Absolutely, and that's a really good point. And sometimes the costs that come at us related to transportation, for example, we get assessed for something that is beyond our control, that is not even entirely just about the students we have in front of us, but it is our legal obligation, I believe our ethical and our moral obligation to provide for all of our students, and particularly those who are most vulnerable in the system. So,
Thank you.
well raised.
I had received one comment saying that we need to do better job funding because the printer in Hopkins is broken. And, you know, these are the small things that parents notice, right? Their experience, their personal experience working with the system, that we are such a, you know, we have enough funding, we have enough funds. Why is it broken? And how would teachers and people who need to print out on a daily basis, how would they work with it? So just wanted to share that. Also, I put my thoughts together just going through the whole process. You know, we do tend to scrutinize every little bit, every little line item. But I'm very appreciative of the fact that you've taken into consideration the growth, student needs and interests, performance measures, staff needs before proposing the plan that you did. I'm also very appreciative that your entire administrative team, you know, Ms. Parsons, Ms. Rothamek, and each and every member of your leadership team who has worked, I think, very collaboratively because of the results. I mean, of course, I was not there, but it's evident that you have worked collaboratively to find efficiencies and better alignment. You know, you move things around to make it better aligned. And I think each member did their best to keep up and have a vision, right? Continue to dream for the kids and aspire for the kids while being mindful of parameters that were provided by the Board of Selectmen. So I'm very, very appreciative of that. The other things, the exciting part that this funding in the coming year will help many initiatives take shape. Hopefully a more meaningful 1822 program. Stronger differentiated program to support all learners, a better website that will give a much needed facelift These were things that stood out. Of course, there's so many others, looking at athletics, art, music, just amazing. And so thankful to our taxpayers for funding this for us and for the kids. This is the future that we're investing in. And thank you to Dr. Kavanaugh for putting this together.
And really, I should thank the entire administrative team, because we wouldn't have the budget that we do without them. From central office to every one of the buildings, they have worked really tirelessly and tediously. So I'm very pleased with how things turned out, but I do think that it was a long haul to get there. And it's just important for everyone to know that it's not easy for people to make these kinds of decisions. It was painstaking at times, so thank you.
Great job.
Well done. I also want to just extend a thank you to our partners on the town side. From the very beginning, I feel like we have worked well, and they have worked collaboratively with us. And even just the way the best budget message was set at the beginning of the year, reflecting their understanding that these are tough times with enrollment and things that we need for them to have set the expectation that we would not be able to come in at the same lower percentage as we have been able to do in years past, I think made a huge difference in our ability to move forward with this. And thank you to all of you and your administrative team. I hope that moving this on will provide a little bit of easing in the 24/7 capacity that it seems like you've been working. So, anybody else have any?
I agree.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add one thing, that it was very clear to me that some painful cuts had to be made, but they were always made with a full awareness that they would not detract from the student's experience. So I feel like it's a very student-centered budget in that respect, and I know it wasn't easy to arrive at that place, but thank you all, did a great job.
Then, is there a motion to approve the FY20 budget?
There is.
Yeah, okay.
There is, and Mina made it.
So the motion made by Mina to approve the FY20 budget, is there a second on that?
There's second is from Meg.
And a second from Meg, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Yes, and the budget is so approved and will be submitted tomorrow to the town. And it will make its way through appropriations, and we will all come back again, hopefully in May for another vote. So, thank you. And with that, we will move into the high school handbook.
All right, so this is probably not dissimilar from what Mr. Keller just told you. The changes that have been made are the words aggressor and perpetrator. So every time you see the word aggressor, it will say aggressor/perpetrator. And to the anti-discrimination language, anywhere that entire lineup of anti-discrimination language exists, the words homelessness and socioeconomic status have been inserted. And then finally, we also have the Pledge of Allegiance. There are a couple of places I was noticing as I was looking at this, so as you are voting on it, you can be sure that we will clean it up before we publish it, because there are some places where the font isn't quite right, or we're missing quotation marks, and then there's a funny place where there's a sentence that looks like it got started, and
Right.
then it didn't really, so we'll clean that up before we publish.
Any,
Will this come back for the 2019-2020 version in the spring?
It will,
Okay, so
yes.
that would probably reflect the cleanup as well. Yeah, my only comment, I think the intended changes are fine. There are definitely some areas of housekeeping in this particular handbook. We could tweak it a bit, just to get it a little bit more readable and a little easier to navigate. And there were definitely some, especially in the bullying section, there were some dangling sentences that were kind of, I think there was a cut and paste and a miss. So
Yes.
I think I sent those to you. And maybe for next year's version, we can
Okay,
make sure it's clean.
yes.
And some of them on the one that's on the Google Doc are different than the one that is in the packet. I mean, different, I think it might have even been a formatting problem, or like you said, a cut and paste problem, because some of them that are in the packets version are correct, but the doc is squirrely. So just be careful which one you're gonna use.
Okay. I'll have
Yeah.
Georgette look very
Yeah,
carefully at
yeah.
that, and we'll figure out what we need to do to clean it up.
That's great. Then I would seek a motion to approve the changes to the Hopkinton High School Handbook for 2018 to 19, as outlined in our agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mina and a second.
Second,
Second by Jen. All those in favor?
yes.
Aye. So we pass that, and then we can scroll through. We've already done the middle school one, and that brings us down to the Elmwood School gift account.
All right, so as you know, elementary schools engage with different businesses, and occasionally we'll have monies given to them to be put into a gift account. What you see before you tonight is the General Mills box top for education, and the donation would be made in the amount of $513 to go into the Elmwood School gift account. So I'm just looking for a motion so that we can vote on putting that money into the gift
So
account.
moved. Motion by Mina, a second.
Second,
Second by Jen. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all set, and I'll go back to cutting box tops for the next one.
don't send in the expired ones.
And, yeah, I used to
We're gonna
collect box
complain
tops.
about that, actually.
I used to do this years ago,
Yep.
you have to cut around them, because otherwise
Oh.
the people that are collecting them spend hours cutting
Yep,
them out.
They do.
A little bit of trivia.
Who knew it was that big of a deal, right?
So that moves us into the Elmwood Statement of Interest.
Yes, so it has become time again to submit a statement of interest to the Mass School Building Authority, the MSBA, to hopefully get into the pipeline so that we can have a renovation addition project at the Elmwood School, so that we can sort of update it a little bit and increase the number of classrooms that we have over there. As you know, we submitted this last year and we were not invited in, we were denied, so hopefully with the increased enrollment, they will be a little more sensitive to our needs there, because I do think that we are getting to a place where we're going to need additional classrooms pretty quickly to house our students.
Bursting at the seams.
Yes. So in order to do that, there's a very specific motion that has to be read. I actually have a copy of it here.
And if I recall, it has to be read out loud into the record.
It does. It has to be read aloud, because what will happen is when you submit to the MSBA, the approved minutes for this evening's meeting will have to be read exactly like this. Because we are not sure of the date on which the form will be submitted, I would just recommend that we say on or before April 12th, because that's the final date for submission. So this is, I think there's plenty of these. The motion.
We could perhaps
And
provide,
this is a memo to all of you regarding that motion.
could perhaps provide the cut and paste for our minutes person.
Oh, yes.
So she's not going to.
So the way that it works is, to do your motion, you'll just read what's inside that box, beginning with having convened.
Including the word result.
No, I think you can just start with having convened in an open session.
So I would seek the following motion. Having convened in an open meeting on January 17, 2019, prior to the SOI submission closing on the, this was the
Oh, you'll wait till you get to the blank at the
The
bottom.
school
Further.
committee, the school committee of Hopkinton, Mass., in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated, this is where I'm
On or
inserting.
before April
On-
12th.
On or before April 12th, 2019, for the Elmwood School located at 14 Elm Street, Hopkinton, Mass., which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. 1, priority number 4, prevention of severe overcrowding expected to result from increased enrollments, and 2, priority number 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as windows, accessibility, heating, and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the city, town, regional school district to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
So
moved.
Is that a motion by Meg?
Yep.
And a second
I'll second
by
it.
Jen? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that is a unanimous vote there to submit the statement of interest. From here, it goes to the Board of Selectmen? Is that?
It does, yes. Yep, so we're waiting to be invited to a Board of Selectmen meeting.
Thank you. Okay, and that moves us into policy. So we have school committee policy AC, non-discrimination and civil rights, notice to students, parents, and employees, and that is you, Dr. Kavanaugh.
Okay. I'm going to find which one it is. I've got so many here.
So yes, we were not quite as heavy with policy while we were going through the budget. Looks like we have some good ones coming up.
Here you go.
Okay, I have found it. So this one's a very simple one. It was actually last voted on in September, when we amended it on the 6th of September in a meeting. The only reason that we have brought it back tonight is because with our tiered focus monitoring or coordinated program review, we have to add the words homelessness and socioeconomic status to all of those protected classes there. So as long as we are comfortable adding the required language, homelessness and socioeconomic status, we will be perfectly fine. And we've taken out physical handicap because disability takes the place of that. And I think that we had done that last time.
Okay, looks good. Questions, comments? Special thank you to the policy working group again. I would seek a motion to approve policy AC, non-discrimination and civil rights notice to students, parents, and employees.
So moved.
Motion by Mina and second.
Second.
Second by Jen. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, and so that is also unanimous. Brings us into school committee policy JICFB, bullying prevention and intervention.
All right, this is another one that comes to us as a result of the coordinated program review tiered focus monitoring. The last time this was before you and adopted was April 12th of 2018. So what we're looking at here is just a change in language. We have the new definition for aggressor perpetrator, and that is a student or staff member of a school, including but not limited to an educator, administrator, school nurse, cafeteria worker, custodian, bus driver, athletic coach, advisor to an extracurricular activity, or paraprofessional who engages in behavior defined as bullying, cyberbullying, or retaliation in Mass General Law, Chapter 71. This person is sometimes referred to as the bully. And then, I believe that there may be, under target and aggressor support, the one thing that we needed to add, according to the state, is that we have to say protections are extended to students who are bullied by a member of the staff when the staff member is named as an aggressor perpetrator in a bullying report. So that was something that we did not have in our policy when we approved it last year.
Okay. So, any questions, anything? Okay, then I would seek a motion to approve policy JICFB, bullying prevention and intervention. Second?
Second.
So motion by Meg and a second by Mina. All those in favor?
Yes.
It is unanimous and so passes. And that moves us into the bullying prevention and intervention plan.
Okay, so the exact same language has been added to the bullying plan. So anywhere where you see all of the protected classes, homelessness and socioeconomic status has been added. Protections are extended to students who are bullied by a member of the staff, and the change in definition for aggressor and perpetrator. Other than that, I don't think that there are any other changes to this plan.
Excuse me.
Questions, comments on this plan? Okay, then in that case, I would seek a motion to approve the bullying prevention and intervention plan as outlined in the agenda materials.
So moved.
Motion by Meg, and then second?
Second.
Second by Jen. All those in favor?
Yes.
I am also an aye, and it is unanimous, and so carries. And that brings us into school committee policy JFBB, school choice.
All right, so school choice comes back every year, and again, we are just looking at school choice because we have to add homelessness and socioeconomic status.
Okay.
So you can see where it's redlined.
Questions, comments? Okay. So then I would seek a motion to approve policy JFBB, school choice.
So moved.
Motion by Meg, and a second?
Second.
Second by Mina. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. And I am, yes, also, and it so carries. And just to note, because we did have a question about this during office hours, this does not make us a choice district. This just is the policy that has to be, we have to affirm our choice annually anyway, so that's separate from our choice not to choose. That brings us into old business, policy JLCE, cardiopulmonary resuscitation and first aid.
All right, so we had a reading of this policy last September 20th, and I think we sort of put it on the back burner until we were sure that we had a mechanism in place to change the batteries in all of our AEDs throughout the district. So we do in fact have that. The athletic trainer will be responsible for all of the athletic ones, and we have contracted with a company that will come in and change the batteries in all of the building and central office ones. And so we have provided for you the contract with CF Medical.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. I feel like our energy is going down here. We need to liven it up.
We're just being efficient, very
Okay.
efficient.
Motion to approve policy JLCE, cardiopulmonary resuscitation and first aid.
So moved.
Motion by Meg, and a second
Second.
by Mina. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and it is unanimous, and so carries. And that moves us into the school calendar. And I will say, just before you go into it, this is an item that I actually received a great deal of correspondence about this week. I think even before people were aware that it was on our agenda for this week, people have been looking for the calendar. Apparently, there are districts that approve 3 years out, which
Yes.
we have not discussed. But so I was able to say with confidence that this was coming to this school committee meeting. So I'll let you.
Okay, so in presenting this calendar, we had it here a few weeks ago in December, and then brought it back tonight for a second reading. And you can see that we've left in August 30th, which it gives everyone that sort of long Labor Day weekend. We had originally put Thanksgiving in the wrong place, so that has been corrected. And the only other thing that I will say about the calendar tonight is if you are looking at all of the yellow days on this calendar, those are defined as either early release days or early dismissal days. And so early dismissal are the ones that happen before Thanksgiving and on the last day of school, and early release are all of the others. An interesting thing that happens here is that there are times when the elementary schools have an early release day, but the high school and middle school do not. We've never had a problem with it until this year. This year, what has happened is when the elementaries do their early release, for whatever reason, that second-tier bus run that goes from Elmwood and Marathon has been getting to the high school and middle school late. And so while some buses make it on time, other buses do not. And in talking with our school resource officers and with Mrs. Rothermick and Marianne Fitzpatrick, who is our transportation coordinator, we're starting to get a little bit worried that with buses coming and going and kids out there sort of milling about for 5, 6, 8, 10 minutes, that there's a safety hazard. What we are going to try to do is to see if we can't rectify the busing issue, but in the event that we feel like it would be safer, those times might be a little bit changed on some of those yellow days. It would be ideal if we could eliminate the notion of early release and early dismissal and just unify that whole thing. So we are working on that, but it may actually require a subcommittee to get that job done. Yesterday, we thought we had it all figured out for the elementaries, and we did, and then we forgot that there was a high school and middle school. So back to the old drawing board today. So that, anyway, the calendar is good, we think, in terms of our schools, the way it looks right now. It's just going to be a matter of changing times, we think, on the yellow days.
Can I ask you one question?
Of course.
In April, when is Patriots Day? I think it might be on the 20th.
Usually the third Monday.
And I think it's the 20th in 2020.
May have another problem with this calendar.
I apologize, I just noticed that
Find my
this
friend.
afternoon.
Great question.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think that we need to have that off.
Yes, we do.
Yes,
It is the 20th.
yeah, I was going to say it's always the
Nice catch.
third Monday. So
So our
the
vacation.
20th being, so vacation is incorrect.
I think it has to shift.
Yeah, all right, we'll fix that.
Sorry, I didn't see it sooner.
No,
I know,
no,
that's a great
That's
catch.
a great catch, yeah.
Oh, it's right, because
I
Easter
have-
is that Sunday.
I have a suggestion to
2
make,
weeks.
if I may.
Sure.
So first, I see that you've also made the adjustment from Columbus Day to Indigenous
We
Peoples
did,
Day.
yes.
So that's great. The other thing I was, I've heard this on social media and otherwise from parents for requests to acknowledge some other holidays that are being celebrated in the community. And, the community is, of course, growing and becoming more and more diverse. So how can we accommodate or at least acknowledge all the various holidays and celebrations that happen? And in my mind, I was thinking that perhaps we could mark a few holidays, kind of put a circle around them. I know it's a busy calendar, so, marking them with yet another bright color, I don't know, that may be jarring to the eyes, but just to kind of circle it out, that may help, folks be more aware and be sensitive based on the holiday that's going on. I appreciated what you shared with the work, Dr. Kavanaugh, that has happened in the Westboro Public Schools and also Ashland. I was hoping if we could consider Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, the Lunar New Year, Diwali, and Kwanzaa as a starting point to circle and mark in the main calendar, not a separate calendar, so that it becomes more and more in everyone's cognition.
Do you want to give me those dates?
Is it okay if I send it to you via
course.
email?
Yes, that's perfect.
Thank you. Because it seems that Eid falls on 2 days based on how the moon is. So I would want to consult with someone as to which date is better marked.
Or which days kids may be out and to celebrate.
Right,
If it's
exactly.
one or the other.
Sorry, I was just going to thank you for bringing that forward. I think that there are definitely people I have heard in the community that would like to see this on our calendar, so thank you for calling attention to it here.
My question for parents who are sort of eager to get a look at this, could we just advise them to look at the school committee packet for tonight? And the one thing that, we need to notice is that the April vacation will
And
be.
Thanksgiving.
Well, Thanksgiving has been cleaned up.
Oh, it is, yes.
Oh,
It is, but it's not in the actual packet.
I had clean copies for you.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's why.
That's why.
Dr. Kavanaugh, would you prefer that I share the dates that I have researched and?
Sure, that would be wonderful.
And if there is any adjustment, we'll let you know. Just give me 1 minute, please.
So, yes, so people can look to see what we have for the basic start and end dates, I think, are the big pieces people are looking at now. And then once this is cleaned up, with all the additional dates added in and Patriots Day corrected, if we could put that up on the district website, that would be great.
Will do, yes.
Just 1 moment.
Thank you, Mina. I think any effort just to make it feel more inclusive is welcome. Except for we don't have Karl Marx's birthday here. But I'll let that slip. May 5th, in case you wanted to know.
May 5th. I'll be happy to celebrate it with you, Meg.
Do you want to vote on this with those changes, or do you want to bring it back?
I think people are anxious to have it
I
voted
think
on.
so,
Would
too.
be- And if people are comfortable that you have the notes to go back
Other
to.
than with that one big change.
One big change.
May I give you those dates? Do you want those dates right now?
No, if you email them, we'll do this tomorrow.
Okay, but we are also voting on the fact that we will circle
Yes.
Yes.
five
Yes.
religious and culture or
So
other.
would you be willing to read those aloud into the motion when we make the
Sure,
motion, just for the sake of the minutes?
sure.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, then I would seek a motion to approve the 2019-2020 school calendar as amended in the meeting here. And do you just want to read the dates again? Or not the dates, but which particular holidays we're going to circle?
Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, Lunar New Year, Diwali, and Kwanzaa.
Motion.
So moved.
Motion by Jen and a second.
Second.
Second by Meg. All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, so it passes, and it will be up on the website soon.
Windows, we've got
Let's say not later than Monday, how's that?
Not later, or Tuesday, since Monday
Oh,
is a holiday.
Tuesday, yes. We'll be home in the snow on Monday.
We'll hopefully be at the middle school at the Martin Luther King's
Yes,
celebration here. I'm hoping that the snow does not keep us
yes.
inbound
so
all
as well.
weekend, because that would be, although I have heard some very wild, large numbers for accumulation.
Yeah.
It'll all be cleaned up by Monday.
Oh, no doubt. Actually, we are very fortunate. I have noticed when I have driven around after storms that Hopkinton roads are better than typically
They
our
do a good
surrounding. Our DPW is pretty good. All right, so that then brings us down, I guess, to our opportunity for public comment here. And I see, unless Bob would like to come forward for a public comment, I think we are all set with public comment. And that moves us then into items by consensus.
All right, so as superintendent, I recommend that the school committee vote to approve the items by consensus as outlined in your agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mina and a
Second.
second by Meg. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. And the items by consensus are approved. And then I would seek a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion by Meg and a second.
Second.
Second by Mina. All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, and it carries, and we are adjourned at 8:54 PM. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will hopefully see everybody here for our next meeting on February 7th at 7 PM. Thank you, and have a good night.